We'll begin shortly.
Yeah.
We'll begin shortly.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Maricopa County News Conference for August 19th.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Maricopa County News Conference for August 19th. I'm Janine Fowler, Operations Chief for the Unified Command. I will be filling in for Fields Mosley today, so bear with me as I know that those are big shoes to fill. You will notice that things look a little different. Welcome to our improved press room, we will be hosting these from now on. And a huge shout out to our communications team for pulling it all together. Thank you to the reporters for joining us today, and thank you to members of the public for joining us via YouTube and Facebook. Today we're going to provide an update to our rental assistance program that launched 4 weeks ago and is designed to keep people in their homes by covering 3 months of rent. Director of Human Services Bruce Liggett will outline their progress and answer any questions you might have. Medical Director Dr. Rebecca Sunenshine is also with us today. She will discuss the trend in our local numbers, testing, as well as our new school dashboard. Also along with us today for the Q&A portion of our presser is Director of Emergency Management Robert Rowley and Executive Director of Public Health Marcy Flanagan, and of course our amazing Spanish translator Joanna Molina from Public Health. Our ASL interpreter Vicky is standing 6 feet away and is not wearing a mask because facial expressions are an important part of ASL interpretation. Members of the media will be called upon by our moderator, and then please ask only one question after our presenters have spoken. We will come back to those who have additional questions. Please note, if you raise your hand, make sure your mic is not muted. We will unmute your mic and call on you to ask a question. If you're having difficulty raising your hand or unmuting your microphone, you are likely clicking too much and the program can't catch up, or you might need to log out and log back in. So now I would like to turn it over to Director Bruce Liggett.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I wanted to provide some brief background and an update on the county's rental assistance program. The Human Department in the county has administered rent assistance programs for a long time, but nothing to the scale like we have undertaken at this point. We're so excited that the Board of Supervisors approved $30 million to be used for rent assistance and the staff necessary to administer the program. The funds available can provide for up to 18,000 months of rental assistance. Unfortunately, these funds are only available through December. We launched the program on July 15th, and prior to that time, we had to develop program requirements, an online screening application and tracking system, enter into agreements with cities and nonprofits to administer the program, and they began recruiting, hiring, and training staff, which is going to be an ongoing process. To qualify, an individual must have a loss of income due to COVID-19 and have income below the area median income and have rent due. And these are for areas outside of the city of Phoenix and Mesa. There are 3 ways to be considered for the County Rental Assistance Program. The first is to complete a pre-application on maricopa.gov/COVID rent help. That application screening asks 8 basic questions of people: where they live, roughly what their income is, and those kind of really basic questions. And if they are ineligible, they're notified that they exceed the thresholds that are allowable. If they don't have a COVID reason, they get a pop-up note saying you're not eligible for the program. Some of the people who have gone online to apply stop in the middle and haven't completed the application. Others have completed the application but were determined ineligible, and the primary reason is they've been asking for assistance for mortgages, and this program is for rent assistance. Their income is too high, or they're not able to document a COVID impact. So the pre-application also allows for people to submit documents online. If they do not submit documents, though, they're still considered pending, and we'll continue to work with them to get the necessary documentation for them to be determined eligible. The second way is through our network of community action programs. We have 11 community action agencies around the county. Again, these are cities, towns, and nonprofits that have for decades been providing community services. These agencies will do the vast majority of eligibility review and approvals for rent assistance. We utilize these agencies because they have their networks in place. They're known in their local communities, they're trusted, they're part of the fabric of their communities, and they bring local resources to bear for families who are needing help. They have an existing staff and workforce, but some of the funds that the board approved are being used for them to add more staff, and that is in process as we speak. The third way is that applicants for the State Department of Housing Rental Assistance Program are also being considered. We have 3,700 people on that list. Much like the county application, many of them have not completed their application fully or with the documents that are needed. But those are going to continue to be considered for the county program. In fact, the eligibility for the state program has changed. The state is allowing us to use the county eligibility now, so that process will be streamlined. That was greatly appreciated. So applications for assistance are on a first-come, first-served basis. We're able to pay $1,500 a month for rent owed and up to 3 months of rent retroactive back to March of 2020. We're obviously, with the applications, with the urgency many families are expressing, we're seeing a tremendous need. Recently, an older single woman who managed a family restaurant that had to close because of the pandemic, she lost her wages and she had a financial hardship. She couldn't pay her basic living expenses. She was eligible for and received rent assistance and said, "I've never asked for help before. I was emotionally drained and worried. Then I found out I was COVID positive. I wondered what would happen to me." But still, rent had to be paid. The Community Action Agency called and said they could pay the rent, and I was in tears. I hope someday to pay it back. Many, many stories like this. After 4 weeks of operation, we posted a summary of our project and progress on our webpage. Over 2,300 persons have submitted applications. To date, as of last Friday, actually, over $1 million, almost $1 million has been provided for 662 months of assistance, helping 323 households. We're going to update this information regularly every 2 weeks. We expect the trend to be continued upward and see the numbers grow as we continue to add and train staff. We're going to monitor this program very closely. If we find out there are some barriers that can be changed, we're going to eliminate those, so we're going to make adjustments as needed during the period. We know that this assistance is critical. Many families are under stress, like the family I just described, are worried, are concerned. It's difficult but challenging work for the staff involved, too. It's gratifying. So many of them know the need out there, and they create their own self-pressure to do as much as possible. It's so rewarding for them to hear when we make a difference. We had a family of 4 with 2 children where the father was laid off from his warehouse job due to the pandemic. The mother continued to work but was eventually quarantined due to COVID-19 exposure. This loss of income in both wage earners made them behind on their rent and the utilities. The local Community Action Agency assisted them, and the family said, "We were down to 1 income, and then we had to stay home with self-quarantine. It was beyond stressful, but the help I got getting us back on track will get us back on our feet again." This is what drives us to do our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Liggett. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Rebecca Sunenshine.
Thank you, Janine, and good afternoon. Let's start with what's going on with cases in Maricopa County right now. I'm happy to say that our number of new cases has declined to an average of less than 500 per day in comparison to over 3,000 at the peak of our COVID-19 pandemic in Maricopa County in late June. These cases include both confirmed and probable cases. We've been getting a lot of questions about why we added probable cases into our counts last Friday. Well, when the pandemic started, all of the cases were based on PCR tests, which was the only type of testing available. So there really were no probable cases to count. As different tests became available, including the antigen test, which has now become much more widely used, it took time for national standards to become available so that we knew how to count those results. Now that the Council of State and Territorial Epidemiologists, which is the national organization that CDC relies on for standardized case definitions, has announced plans to consider the antigen test as a probable case, we wanted to ensure that all of the antigen tests that are positive are counted in our counts. So what does that mean? It means that we've had 628 positive antigen tests since the beginning of the pandemic, and those are scattered throughout several months. So they actually represent less than 0.5% of all the cases there are. The change when we added those cases in did not affect any of our trends, including the time when it peaked and the time when it started to decrease. But as these tests become more widely used and widely available, they may have more of an impact. The other question we're getting is how we know that the decrease in case counts is not related to a decrease in people getting tested. We know this for several reasons. First is that when there is less community spread, there are less people who have symptoms, and we expect fewer people to get tested. Most people who get tested are people with symptoms. Second, the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 started to go down just about 2 weeks after we saw the case counts go down. And that's exactly what we would expect. COVID-19 hospitalizations are not dependent on the number of people who get tested in the community. And that's because everyone who's hospitalized with symptoms that are related to COVID-19 automatically get tested, regardless of community availability of testing. If a decrease in testing was causing the decrease in cases, hospitalizations would have remained stable or even increase. Lastly, the best measure that we have to determine if enough testing is available in the community is the percent of tests that are positive, or percent positivity. The percent of positive tests in Maricopa County has decreased from a high of 23% at the peak down to about 9% on average 2 weeks ago. A decreasing percent positivity tells us that the case counts are truly declining. If the percent positive had remained stable or increased, that would tell us that there's not enough testing available. So the bottom line is that case counts continue to decrease, and we don't know how much longer that will continue to occur. We know that the decrease started almost exactly 2 weeks after the County Board of Supervisors unanimously voted to have a mask mandate in place right around June 20th. We know that hospitalization numbers decreased about 2 weeks after that, and that the death numbers decreased last. Our most complete data that we have is from the beginning of August, about 6 weeks after the mask mandate was put into place. And we are seeing those effects in all of the data that we track. For those who want to monitor the community data with us, we now have a dashboard that has case rates and percent positivity by zip code, school district, and city available on our website. We launched it last Friday and appreciate all of the input that school officials provided, both as we were building it and since we've launched it. It offers a way for users to see if a specific school or district is recommended to hold classes virtually, in person, or in a hybrid or combined virtual and in-person model. And this depends on their area's data for statewide benchmarks after school reopening. We're so excited that schools and their families can see 2 weeks worth of data to know what the levels of community spread are in their area. For everyone in Maricopa County, there are a few things that we still need help with to get COVID spread under control. If you are experiencing COVID-like symptoms, please get tested. You can find a symptom checker and testing locations at maricopa.gov/COVID-19. Stay home if you are sick, and stay away from others in your household if you are sick to avoid infecting them. To help you with knowing how long to stay home, we've developed a tool on maricopa.gov/COVID-19 that's called Home Isolation Decision Maker Tool, and you can find it under Recent Updates. You can put in your information and it will tell you exactly how long you need to isolate and stay home away from others. Thank you to everyone who is wearing a mask and taking precautions to prevent further spread. We're seeing the results of our collective efforts. It's hard for us to imagine all of the cases, hospitalizations, and even deaths that didn't occur because we took the necessary actions to prevent them. But know that each one of you was part of the solution, and we need to continue these measures to keep our case counts, hospitalizations, and deaths from going right back up. By wearing masks, practicing social distancing, and other basic prevention measures, we are able to work, shop, eat out, and avoid a stay-at-home order. It will also prevent flu from spreading so that we can make sure that anyone who does get sick can get the care that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sunenshine. And before we get to questions, I just wanted to offer a quick update. Phase 1 of Maricopa County's Small Business and Nonprofit Relief Program ended July 31st. More than 300 businesses and nonprofits were provided grants totaling about $2.4 million. Phase 2 started on Monday. $20 million is available for grants. 250 applicants have already been reviewed, and 21 organizations have already been approved for about $450,000. This program provides up to $25,000 grants to small businesses and nonprofits impacted by COVID-19 and is using CARES Act money to pay for it. It's on a first-come, first-served basis, so when the money's gone, the money's gone. Phoenix and Mesa businesses are not eligible to apply because those cities receive their own CARES Act money and are running similar programs. So if you're from those jurisdictions, please look at the Phoenix and Mesa websites. This program is offered through a partnership with Arizona Community Foundation, and applications will be accepted through October 2nd. For more information and to apply, go to azfoundation.org/Maricopa Relief, or in Spanish at www.azfoundation.org/Maricopa Relief ESP. And I invite Joanna to come up and just translate that for us. Thank you.
Queremos dar una actualización acerca de lo que viene siendo la fase económica del Condado Maricopa. Sabemos que la fase 1 del programa de alivio para negocios pequeños y también para agencias no lucrativas venció el 31 de julio. Más de 300 empresas o negocios pequeños y no lucrativos pudieron recibir un total de $2.4 millones. La fase 2 ha empezado ya este lunes. Más de $20 millones estarán disponibles en fondos. 250 aplicantes o solicitantes se han ya solicitado y se están revisando esas solicitudes. 21 organizaciones ya han recibido y han sido aprobadas para $450,000 en fondos. Este programa provee hasta $25,000 en fondos para negocios pequeños y también para agencias no lucrativas. Este fondo se estará utilizando del dinero de fondos federales CARES Act, que va a suplir estos fondos, y se dará a los que soliciten a cómo vayan llegando esas solicitudes. Los que no califican son negocios y agencias no lucrativas en Phoenix y Mesa, debido a que esas ciudades tienen sus propios programas que recibieron de fondos federales. Este programa también se ofrece en asociación con la Fundación de Arizona Community Foundation. Las solicitudes se van a aceptar hasta el 2 de octubre para esta segunda fase. Si usted quiere más información o para solicitar, le invitamos a que visite la página en español www.azfoundation.org/Maricopa Relief ESP.
Thank you, Joanna. Now let's take some questions.
Our first question is from Rebecca Sanders. Rebecca, if you'll unmute your microphone, you're ready to go.
Good. Hi, this is Rebecca Sanders at the Arizona Republic. I've got several questions. I'd like to learn more about the process that Mr. Liggett described of the county reviewing rental applications that went to the state. I'm also interested to hear how it is that the county has been able to approve rental assistance applications so much faster than the state has in just a few weeks. And then I'm also interested, we're about 5 months into the pandemic, but the county program only provides 3 months of help. Wondering how renters still suffering from job loss or other impacts are supposed to make up that gap. So sorry, I've got so many questions, but really appreciate your answering them.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I'll ask Bruce Liggett to come up to answer those questions about the process of the county reviewing applications, the county being able to approve rental applications potentially faster than the state, and the gap in rental assistance. So I'll invite Director Liggett up to answer those questions.
The county received funding for the state rental assistance program in April. We immediately began, again, bringing on staff and working those cases. I think that the initial requests were overwhelming to many of us who were administering the program. There also was a high number of people who completed partial applications and didn't finish those applications. The question was, though, how are we processing those? So we've got some dedicated staff in the Human Services Central Office who are working those cases. And as they apply, we're working them and basically giving them the county assistance. What happened last week is that the state allowed flexibility for the state rental assistance program. They said that you can now use the county eligibility criteria on those cases. So what I'm describing is changing, is in process. So we had dedicated staff where we're working those, and then we were working the county program in parallel. If somebody on the county program needed additional months beyond the 3 that the county allows, we were able to use and are still able to use the state housing program. Now that the eligibility is going to be the same, we're going to continue to work them both at the same time and get those cases integrated and extend their benefits if they need them. I think the other question was how it appears that the county is working on these faster. Well, I'll start by saying we learned from the state in terms of some of what they experienced and some of the difficulties in collecting the information. And based on that experience running the state program, tried to make ours a bit simpler. And so I think that's been a big factor in terms of that, what we've learned. It's lessons learned. These programs, we are making modifications as we learn because we've got such a huge demand in such a short period of time.
Fueron varias preguntas. Vamos a empezar. La primera es, ¿cuál es el proceso de cómo se rehúsa o cómo se puede aprobar las solicitudes del condado a comparación del estado? ¿Y cómo es que el condado puede revisar las solicitudes más rápido que el estado? Y también si son 3 meses de renta, pero tenemos ya 5 meses de pandemia, ¿cómo es que la gente puede vivir más allá de esos 3 meses? ¿Cómo se suplen esos meses que faltan? Bueno, contestando la primera pregunta, el condado recibió en abril, que era algo, se inundaron las solicitudes que llegaron al condado. Fueron muy altas la demanda y también algunas de esas solicitudes no se llenaron bien, se fueron regresadas, se fueron devueltas. También tenemos el personal muy dedicado para revisar cada una de estas solicitudes. También el estado ahora dice que podemos incluir al condado en el mismo proceso, el mismo tipo de calificaciones, lo que ellos están solicitando también lo puede solicitar en el condado. Esto es para la elegibilidad de vivienda y también de renta. En cuestión de la segunda pregunta del Estado, hemos aprendido lo que el Estado ha estado haciendo y hemos simplificado el proceso en el condado para hacer las cosas también mucho más rápidas y poder solicitar todas, llenar las solicitudes más a tiempo, especialmente con la alta demanda que se tiene.
Thank you, Chad. Do we have another question?
We do. Our next question is from Courtney Holmes. Courtney, your microphone is live.
Hi, this is Courtney Holmes with ABC 15. I just wanted to get clarification. The nearly, and this is about the rental assistance program, the $1 million that's paid out, or that was mentioned, that has been paid out. That is not in process or anything like that. And then I wanted to find out what was the time frame between someone having all their documentation in and then their rent actually being paid.
Okay, so the question is about that $1 million, if it has been paid out, and the time frame for being paid. I'll invite Director Liggett up.
Thank you. The question is the length of time from a complete application to when the payments get made. I can't actually commit to a time frame. Again, we're working through local communities, and some of our communities include Gila Bend. Others are much larger communities like Chandler or Avondale or Surprise. So it really is depending on the volume, frankly. And that's why we're glad that we're able to do retroactive payments for people and to be able to catch their amounts that they're making. Was there a second part to that question?
The $1 million payout? Has the $1 million been paid out?
The $1 million is the amount that has been paid. And in terms of our payment processing, from the time that an application has been approved by a program person and reviewed to make sure it's eligible, we have about a 4 to 5 day time period in which we make a payment to the landlord.
Bueno, tenemos la pregunta de que si ya se otorgó $1 millón en cuestión de la asistencia de renta o de alquiler, y cuál es el tiempo desde que una persona solicita y cuando se otorga el dinero precisamente al dueño de la renta, de la propiedad. El tiempo de espera pues depende, no tenemos un tiempo específico, depende de qué tan grande sea esa población. Estamos hablando de diferentes ciudades, diferentes lugares. Por ejemplo, Gila Bend es más pequeño que la ciudad de Chandler, de Avondale, Surprise. Entonces depende de la medida de las poblaciones y cuánta gente solicite de ese lugar. El proceso, una vez que se revisa la solicitud y se aprueba, puede tardar hasta 4 semanas para poder pagarle al dueño de esa propiedad. Cabe mencionar que esto es debido por lo que se hace retroactivo, porque dura 4 semanas para poder hacer ese pago.
Thank you, Joanna. Do we have another question, Chad?
We do. We have one from Michael Doudna. Michael, your microphone is live.
Hey there. Doing a question on trends. So this is probably for Dr. Sunenshine. And it's a two-parter. First, it looks like numbers are heading in the right direction. Of course, the state's looking at 600 applications for certain businesses to reopen. Do you think this is the right move and the right time for this? And then a second question on top of that is, are we past the peak that everyone kind of wants to focus on when it comes to this pandemic? Thank you.
So the question that you have is in regards to the businesses. Is it the right time for the state to open those businesses or those 600 businesses that are in the wings? And then the second question is, are we past the peak?
Yep.
Okay. We'll start with Dr. Sunenshine, and then Director Flanagan will also offer her comments. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Regarding are we past the peak, we are definitely past the peak on this particular wave of COVID-19. And we know that because we hit a very clear high right in the very end of June, early July, and that has continued to decline. Because we attribute this peak to several interventions, including the mask requirement on June 20th, and right around the same time, the governor put in place closing bars and gyms and some other businesses. We do believe that that is the predominant reason why we're declining, but we know that if we stop those interventions or relax social distancing or wearing masks, that we could have an additional increase. So I don't want to make it sound like we're past the point where we need to do anything, but we do seem to be past the peak at this time. And now I'll have Joanna come up and translate, and then Director Flanagan. Thank you.
Son dos preguntas. La primera es que si los números van en dirección correcta y si ya se pueden reabrir 600 negocios que han estado en espera. Y la segunda parte es si ya alcanzamos la época pico de COVID-19 en cuestión de casos. Empezamos por la respuesta de la pregunta número 2. Si ya pasamos la época pico de la primera ola de COVID-19. Esto fue a finales de junio y a principios de julio. Esto se debe a varias intervenciones. El 20 de junio se puso un requisito del uso de las mascarillas. Entonces también se cerraron negocios y bares, por lo que creemos que ha ayudado a disminuir el número de casos que estamos viendo. También queremos dejarles saber que no creemos que ya estamos libres de esta pandemia o de que no puede haber alguna ola más. Es importante que sigamos haciendo lo que estamos haciendo, por eso hemos visto los números que están bajando.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to answer the part of the question where you referenced the approximately 600 applications that have gone to ADHS for gyms and bars and other establishments to reopen. So the state is using similar criteria to what they're using for schools to determine if it's safe for these establishments to reopen. They're also requiring these establishments to submit plans for how they plan on either having social distancing or wearing mask requirements or limiting their capacity in these establishments. So whether the community surrounding that establishment is seeing numbers that would allow for these establishments to open. I think having all of these measurements in place and looking at all those factors is the right decision in having these businesses safely reopen to the public.
Que parte de la respuesta a la primera pregunta que se hizo anteriormente es que si los números van en la dirección correcta y si ya pueden reabrir los 600 negocios que han estado en espera. Bueno, las 600 solicitudes para que puedan reabrir los negocios, ahora el Estado ha pedido que ellos tengan un plan de cómo van a hacer esa reapertura. Están pidiendo planes como cuál será el distanciamiento social, utilizarán la mascarilla, quizás reducir el número de personas que permiten dentro de sus instalaciones. Entonces estamos yendo en el camino correcto, solamente que se tiene que presentar ese tipo de planes para poder reabrir esos negocios.
Thank you. Chad, is there another question?
There is. Nicole Grigg has a question. Nicole, your microphone is live.
Hi, all. I wanted to reach out about new numbers that are out for the death statistics from ADHS. There is a 71% increase in deaths in Maricopa County from 2019 to 2020 in just July. I don't want to get too much into the numbers, but it does show that deaths are up 1,800 from 2019. But numbers show that there's about 1,300 people who died in the county this July. So what could be attributed to the other 600 deaths? Could there be COVID-19 deaths that are missing?
Okay, so thank you, Nicole. I'm going to let Dr. Sunenshine answer that question about basically you're looking for that other 600 in July, what it could be attributed to. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the question, Nicole. And it's a question that we're asking ourselves as well. Because those deaths just occurred in July, it does take several months or even longer before we can really analyze what all of the causes of deaths are, because many of them do take time to be processed by the medical examiner. That being said, there are a few factors that we think are contributing to the increase in the COVID-19 deaths in July 2020 relative to 2019. Number one is obviously an increase in COVID-19 directly related deaths. And I want to reassure everyone that every single person who has COVID-19 listed anywhere on their death certificate is in fact counted. And even if it's not listed on their death certificate, anyone who has a COVID-19 positive test within a certain period of when they died is also counted as a COVID-19 positive death. Lastly, we have a system in Maricopa County where if somebody dies in their residence or at home and we don't know why they died, if there's any suspicion that there was any respiratory illness at all, we actually send someone from the medical examiner out and do a COVID test post-mortem to make sure that they're being included in our death counts. And as far as I know, we're one of the only communities that have such a system in place. So are we capturing every single COVID-related death? Probably not, but I think we're probably doing as well or better than most of the rest of the communities. So what about the rest of them? We've had record heat, record temperatures in July, and I can imagine that even getting a mild respiratory illness, if you are experiencing other conditions like homelessness, and the temperature is exceedingly hot, then that is going to contribute to death. So I do think that the heat was part of it. And then I want to mention that there are a lot of deaths that are indirectly related to COVID-19. People with chronic conditions like diabetes or heart disease may not have been able to seek care from their primary care providers or other providers when the healthcare system shut down initially in the beginning of the pandemic. Or they may have been more hesitant to go into the hospital when they should have because they were either afraid or worried that there wasn't enough space. So we do know that there is a certain number of people that probably died related to COVID-19 but didn't actually have the disease. And that's our best guess at this time. Thank you.
La pregunta es que si los nuevos números de casos de defunciones en el estado y el condado, ¿a qué se pudiera deber? Ha habido un incremento del 2019 al 2020. Estamos hablando de que más de 1,800 muertes se han reportado, lo que viene siendo hasta la fecha, y 600 muertes en julio, que no se sabe todavía a cuál es la razón de esas muertes. La respuesta es que como apenas ocurrieron esas muertes en el mes de julio, toma meses para ser procesada cada una de esas muertes y poder ser investigada. Puede ser por varias razones y es lo que podemos hablar. Eso puede ser por COVID-19 relacionadas a la enfermedad. En los certificados de defunción presentarán ellos esa causa como de muerte si sufrieron COVID-19. También si tuvieron un caso positivo o una prueba positivo, aunque no es en el certificado, también aparecerá que tuvieron una prueba positiva. También puede ser que si la persona murió en casa, se le va a pedir al médico forense que haga una autopsia para saber la razón de esa muerte. Y eso puede tomar también un tiempo para saber la realidad de esa muerte. Otro de los factores puede ser por el calor. Esa es una de las razones que cada año vemos más muertes en el condado. Otra razón, el número 3, pudiera ser indirectamente relacionadas a COVID-19. Esto es personas que sufren ya de problemas cardíacos, de diabetes, de otras condiciones crónicas, que no pudieron atenderse a tiempo, ya sea por temor de ir a un doctor o porque se cerraron ciertas instalaciones durante la época precisamente pico de COVID-19.
Thank you. Chad, do we have another question?
We do. Rebecca has a follow-up question. Rebecca, your microphone is live. It looks like you'll need to unmute your phone. Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering if you could elaborate on how you are ensuring that payments to the landlords from the county's rental assistance program are not doubling up if landlords also apply for assistance to the governor's landlord relief fund.
Thank you, Rebecca. So your question is about ensuring that payments to landlords are not doubling up. We will invite Director Liggett to answer that question. Thanks.
Prior to approval of rental assistance, we receive a form that is signed off on by the landlord that says their amount of money is owed by the resident. So that's the check and balance. These checks don't go to applicants, they go to landlords, and landlords step in that process as telling what's owed today by that family. And on that basis, we're making the payments.
La pregunta es, ¿cómo podemos explicar o cómo nos aseguramos de que los pagos que recibe el dueño de una propiedad, ellos no están recibiendo doble pago porque han solicitado tanto al condado como también al estado? Bueno, la respuesta aquí es que los solicitantes, una vez que llenan la solicitud, firman un documento que dice cuánto es la cantidad que se le debe al dueño. Entonces hay cómo comprobar de que esa cantidad se le debe a ese propietario. Y es la forma en que se puede uno pagar y que no se esté dando doble cantidad.
Thank you. Chad, do we have another question?
We do. Courtney Holmes has a follow-up question as well. Courtney, your microphone is live.
Hi, I have two questions. I want to follow up on Rebecca's question. So are you saying that you're cross-referencing the landlords that accept money from the county with whatever list the state has? Is that how you're verifying? So that's question number one. And question number two, I'm trying to get clarification on the 3,700 state applications. So does that mean that the money that is, if they qualify for county money for the first 3 months, then they're allowed to use the state money, or have they already applied for state application, but they really apply for the county? I'm just trying to get clarification on what these 3,700 applications are and why the county would have to, or would be able to take them over from the state.
Okay, so your two questions. How are we cross-referencing landlords from the state and then the 37 state applications? We'll let Director Liggett answer that question.
As I mentioned, I think much of this got simpler last week when the state allowed the county to use county eligibility for state applicants. So we're going to go through those 3,700, and the state provided some assistance and some staffing to do that, and those cases were being worked. Now that we can use county eligibility, they're going to continue to be looked at, but we're going to look at those cases. We'll know then if they are in the queue to have been paid by the state or if they were paid by the state. That's a check and balance on the system. It also answers an earlier question, what if somebody needs more than the 3 months that the county is providing? So essentially, those cases are going to be worked on a first-come, first-served basis, just like the other cases we've received. But they'll be worked by our staff centrally and not by the local community action agencies.
La pregunta es que si están revisando que los dueños no soliciten tanto al condado, es una de las preguntas, y al estado, y también de los 3,700 solicitantes que paguen tanto el estado como el condado. ¿Cómo se puede verificar que no están recibiendo de ambos lados? Bueno, los requisitos de elegibilidad son los mismos ahora, tanto el estado como el condado. Y cuando hay un cobro, se sabe si esa persona ha solicitado, porque se ponen los nombres y puede verificarse también en lo que viene siendo el estado. De ahí se sabe si ese individuo podrá haber solicitado anteriormente y si se ha recibido algo.
Thank you. Do we have another question, Chad?
We do. Peter Seymour has a question. Peter, your microphone is live.
Yes, again, just to follow up with Director Liggett, we want to make sure the landlords are not cashing in twice, meaning, they're getting the money from the renters who have applied for assistance, and they're not getting extra money from the state because they're trying to make their own bills. In essence, again, getting double the rent through these assistance programs.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So your question is additional clarification on landlords and how they're getting paid. We'll ask Director Liggett to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the primary check and balance here is that we've got two entities involved. We have an individual or a family saying to us, we need help. We need help specifically for these months in which we owe rent. And we have a landlord independently verifying that those months are still owed, that they have not received payment for those months. So based on those two, both separately saying that money's owed, hasn't been paid, we're making payments.
La pregunta es que los dueños, ¿cómo no podrán recibir doble pago, no? Tanto por renta también como solicitar para pagar los gastos que ellos tienen. Bueno, la forma que los está haciendo en este momento es que tanto las personas que solicitan, los individuos que solicitan, deben de presentar la cantidad de renta que se debe. Y el dueño de esa propiedad tiene que verificar que no ha recibido pago por ese individuo en lo que va del trámite del tiempo por lo que está solicitando. Así es como se puede verificar.
Thank you. Chad, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, Rebecca would like to get some clarification, so we're going to go ahead and open her mic back up. Rebecca, your microphone's live. You'll unmute yours.
Sorry, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here. I think some of the confusion is that there's the state and county rental aid programs, but there's also a separate $5 million fund that the governor's office launched a few weeks ago, which is specifically for landlords. A landlord can apply for up to $50,000 per property for assistance. And there's been concern among housing groups that a renter could be approved through a state or county, the ADOH or county program. At the same time, a landlord could be approved through the governor's program, and there might be some doubling up there.
Okay, thanks for that, Rebecca. We'll let Director Liggett come up and answer that question regarding the governor's specific, the money, the $5 million that you referred to.
Thank you. Actually, I'm not aware of the details of how that program's been developed for landlords and what the checks and balances being built in there. But that's something we could check with the state and work with the state on. But I just haven't followed that program as it's been developed.
Okay. La pregunta es acerca de fondos del estado y del condado y también que hay $5 millones que el gobernador dijo que existían para que los dueños de negocios o de propiedades pudieran solicitar. Estamos hablando de que pudieran recibir hasta $50,000 por propiedad para que ellos pudieran solicitar por propiedad que tengan. Entonces la respuesta es que al momento no se sabe todos los detalles de ese programa del gobernador. Entonces se tendría que dar seguimiento para saber cuáles son los requisitos que ellos están pidiendo.
Thank you. Chad, do we have any more questions?
We have one more from Juan Flores. Juan, your microphone is live. If you'll unmute yours, you'll be ready.
Hi there, thank you. I just wanted to get a summary because I don't know if I missed it or just didn't hear correctly. Do you have any data on how much assistance has been given out so far on rental assistance? I mean, you mentioned there was a 3,700 in waiting for the $1,500 a month for 3 months help. So how much of that has actually gone out, or what's the average time of processing those, and any just summary data that you can offer about the rental assistance?
Thanks, Juan. I am going to let Director Liggett come up and answer that question.
Thank you. So as of last Friday, we paid just under $1 million in rental assistance payments. And we've got a short synopsis of some of the key facts about the program on the county website on COVID rent help. And that can fill you in on a lot of the details in terms of that. Back to the question about in terms of processing, I wish I could give a hard and fast rule. Because we're operating this locally through so many community action agencies, cities and nonprofits, the demand is different around the state. Some agencies are getting applications in and are able to process them within a week or two. Others have hundreds of people in line waiting for assistance, so it's going to vary. The measure that we're tracking closely is from the time that an application has been approved, how long is it taking to put that check in the mail, and our target date on that is 5 days. Thank you.
La La pregunta es cuánto dinero se ha dado en asistencia de renta y también cuál es el tiempo que se toma para procesar esas solicitudes. Bueno, hasta el viernes se habían otorgado poco menos de $1 millón en asistencia de renta, y para tener todos los detalles pueden visitar la página de internet que viene siendo maricopa.gov/COVID Rent Help. Ahí podrá tener todo detallado. También el proceso varía y es debido a las agencias. Se trabaja con agencias no lucrativas. Algunas pueden tardar una semana en procesar una solicitud. Otros tienen cientos de solicitudes en espera debido a la cantidad precisamente de gente que está solicitando. Lo que sí se sabe es que una vez que la persona es aprobada, dura un promedio de 5 días para recibir ese cheque.
Thank you. Chad, do we have any other questions?
That was the last question.
Great. We thank you all for joining us today. Visit us on social media for information on our next news conference. And please remember to stay up to date at www.maricopa.gov/COVID-19. Thank you.